And here we are. We're live with Marty Jertson from Ping. Marty, thank you very much for coming on. I think we have a lot to talk about because you're into so many things. So I've been looking forward to this for some time.
Yeah, Pete, same man. This thing's been on my schedule. It's always fun to be able to share, a little bit from the inside world, and hopefully the listeners will get a tip or two out of this that they can help play better golf. That's the ultimate goal.
With all the stuff that you and the guys and the girls and everybody at Ping are doing, I think anybody who doesn't take something from this maybe needs to rethink. Maybe they should play tennis or go into maybe pickleball. Yeah. Dude, when I was just kind of, as I was looking your info up and everything and just looking for what you've been doing lately, I did notice, and I only noticed this, it caught my eye because I just got one, a Violetta mocha pot. And I saw one on yours, and I saw that the Brain Octane post that you had. And so I don't envision myself as a coffee snob, even though I do have a Breville espresso, the whole.
Love it.
Then I've got every way: pour over, AeroPress. I got the Violetta now. I got all of it. But the mocha pot I just got, so it does make a pretty strong espresso and cup of coffee. So I didn't know how well versed you were in it. Maybe you could give me a tip or two before we got going in the show.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been on different journeys on coffee, man. I love coffee. I always, as a golfer, man, I always got to manage my levels just right, though. I think it's a big deal as a golfer. Like, you got to have the caffeine, but not too much. Manage your your jitters a little bit, so to speak. But yeah, high quality coffee is important. I mean, you drink. I mean, I respond pretty bad to like drinking a Starbucks or something. And I think a lot of it has to do with like the toxins in it and things of that nature kind of make you kind of shaky. So high quality coffee, and everyone's genetics are a little bit different on how they respond to it. So there's a little N=1 experimentation. But yeah, I've played around with it for a long time of, not eating, kind of intermittent fasting, like don't eat breakfast. And for a while I was doing like a tiny bit of high fats in the coffee or MCT oil or whatever. And I think it's been really good for me personally, like my cognition ability to think and be cognitively sharp, which I think is a super big deal on the golf course, for me at least.
Yeah, I did notice that on whether it was ketones or the MCT oil or Brain Octane or just coconut oil. And I've done it in coffee. I've done it in a mix of green tea and black tea, where I take a full Yeti. I don't know, was it 30 ounces and I fill it all with tea, and then you throw that coconut or MCT oil in there. It's like, oh my God, this is.
Personally, I love that. I mean, I feel great on that.
Dialed in like crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a talk for another podcast. I'm sure we could go on a lot of different tangents there, but again, you guys are doing some very cool things at Ping.
Yeah.
And so your title has somewhat changed over the years, as I was reading, and I've had Paul on, I've had Eric on, and it's been great to have them on, and we had great discussions. It was a lot of fun. But it's kind of hard for me as I've watched you in your placement in the company. It's like I'm not quite sure what Marty does.
What do you do?
What do you do? And I can imagine, like, someone today at the golf shop said, "Well, who's coming on the podcast?" I said, "Marty Jertson." He said, "Oh, it's got to be cool." I was like, "I got to ask Marty." I said, being like, to me, he like gets to roam around the company and just like a kid in the biggest candy store in golf, and just say, "Okay, let me take this putter and go play with this, and let me take this wedge, let me take this driver, and let me go test this." So I guess the first question I'd have is, what do you do? What would be your official job?
Yeah, no, it's funny you should ask, because I think the most interesting jobs are the ones hard to put a job title to, So for most of my career starting at Ping, I was a design engineer, which is like I was the chief designer of a product. And then as I got more experience and so on and so forth, I became the director of product development, which is effectively the chief engineer. You're kind of calling all the shots on all the product development, design decision, shafts, grips, system design. So that I was kind of the chief engineer prior to my current role, which my boss, John K. Solheim, came to me and was like, "Hey, man, we need somebody to lead." A lot of people, the rest of the industry kind of adopted a lot of the methodologies that Ping used for fitting, and we were known forever to be the leader in custom fitting. And he was like, "Dude, we need to double down on that, and we need somebody to lead that. Do you want to lead it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that another open-ended area to learn and grow. I've always been passionate about fitting, along with Eric and Paul. We've kind of teamed up on a lot of cool ideas and bringing some ideas and fundamental research to reality. Those guys are the researchers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of view my job, them and their colleagues, my job is to productize that research, like to make it a reality, bring it into our fitters and ultimately our end customers, man. I want to build products that help golfers play better. So that's a long story to get to. My current job title is Vice President of Fitting and Performance. And I kind of got to choose that title because I was like, I wanted something that covered the custom fitting world.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing a lot of cool things just to help golfers play better golf. So that's kind of the performance wing of that job title.
On a day-to-day, as you go in to the company, are you more taking what Paul and Eric have worked on, the let's say the lab, the ideas and the theoretical principle of the science, and then kind of working with that to make something that's going to be very consumer desirable? Like, and I guess the easiest example would be like Apple. Apple was always known that they had the great tech, but they also made it sleek and everyone's phone, like the BlackBerry was the thing.
It just worked. Yeah.
But Apple went and made stainless steel that was matted, coloring, and
yeah,
it was sleek and the design was cool. So would you say that you're taking the scientific data and the information that they give you and you're making it into that sleek, desirable, eye popping, like, wow, let's check out Ping products for that. And then because you got to lure them in,
Yeah.
you can have the best thing in the world. And if it doesn't have visual appeal, then nobody's going to, or limited people are going to be gravitated to it.
Yeah, I mean, even on my department goals I have for my team, one of our little tidbits there is to make the complex simple. Because what we do at Ping and all the R&D we do, man, oh man, like it can overwhelm people if you try to tell that whole story of all the little nooks and crannies that our research goes down. So I view, and hopefully we've done this with some of the tools we've made lately, like Ballnamic or a lot of these really, really cool tools in our Copilot fitting application, is to make those complex things simple and deliver them in a beautiful interface that saves the fitter time, makes them look good, and help golfers play better. So yeah, I would say, but so I would say, yeah, I view a lot of what I do is come in and I'm aware of all the research that we're doing in all these different domains, and then try to tease out, okay, this is an opportunity in the marketplace where people really need help to play better golf. And if we could deliver a solution to them, that's going to be a win-win for everybody. So it is fun to kind of, choose which rabbit hole that we go down and which problems we try to solve.
Because it would seem like it is the giant behemoth for, what are you guys, 60 some years now?
Yeah, 60 plus years old.
It is one of the leaders in the industry, and the leader as far as research and development, as you said. And Eric and I talked about how you take a creative company with a bunch of engineers and how do you gel that together. And
yes.
His answer was so simple. He's like, well, we plan for it.
Yeah.
We plan creative meetings. I'm like, well, that makes total sense. I mean,
yeah, you got to schedule time for that.
Yes. How else are you going to marry the two together? But it's like, you're finding out solutions to problems that golfers don't even know that they have yet.
Yep.
And making it that answer very simple. When someone goes to a Ping rep or they go to a Ping fitter, they come out to see you guys out there, then you're able to solve that. And okay, hey, I'm sure you have an interview process which we can touch on, but I'm sure you go through the what's wrong, how can we help you, and all those things. And they, okay, do this, this, and this. And they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so different. It's like magic.
Yep. Yeah, I think the great fitting, you come out the other end and it is magic, Pete. And it's the marriage of both product and the fitting, right? Because I think that you could have great product. So let's say we have the highest moment of inertia driver on the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna be self-correcting. You can hit anywhere on the face, and the spin's gonna stay about the same. The gear effect's perfect. The bulge and rolled offset, the gear effect's perfect. But you get somebody in the driver that the spin is nominally too low or too high, right? Then that's a bad club fitting. Or the shaft that doesn't work with their transition, that's a bad club fitting. Conversely, you could have a great club fitting. Like, the shaft works perfect for the players' timing, their kinetics and transition. When they hit it perfectly in the center of the face, they get the right launch conditions. But then they go play it on the course, and it's not forgiving. They hit it all over the face. They get chaotic shots, foul balls, and things of that nature. But the magic is the marriage of those two things together, along with a great custom fitter that has great tools that can show you the benefits of the fitting process, right? And so we're trying to harmonize and bring all those things together. We view this, Pete, as a never-ending problem. Like, we're never done.
Yeah, it's continually evolving.
You're never done. So it's like every door we open to ask a question, and I think you talked about this with Eric, is like, you know, a lot of what we do is just trying to get answers to questions that we have. Every door you open to ask another question usually opens 5 or 10 more doors. You know, I think there's a quote that I like from I think Nassim Taleb or something, is the deeper you get, or the further you get from the shore, the deeper the ocean. You know, and that's very much the case in the R&D world. Like, you know, I have more questions now than answers 20 years into my career in R&D.
Well, it's got to keep you motivated. It gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It's not like you're
100%.
going 20 years and it's like the same answers every time.
You never, ever have I come to work like bored or what should I work on today? The to-do list of problems to solve, it keeps getting longer than we have speed to solve them.
Would you say that one of the challenges that you guys have, and the girls there, I don't want someone to hammer me on that, on some troll on social media, you know, today's world, but would you say that one of the challenges, because the amount of R&D that y'all do and the mountains of information you have, that one of those would be to stay on track or stay focused on and not veer off too much? Because you could get in the weeds very easily. And next thing you know, you're lost. It's like, how the hell did I get here?
Yeah, that is such an important point, Pete. And what I do, the way I've tried to manage that through techniques, is we have a not to-do list. Okay, that's what I've created for both myself and my department. Is like, hey, there's so much opportunity, there's so many problems to solve. It's very easy for an individual engineer to go down a rabbit hole that may not bear much fruit at the end of the day in terms of performance or impact on the golfer or club fitter. So what we will purposely have areas of research, R&D, or performance that at least for some time period be like, hey, for this next 6 months, we're not going to work on these 5 things. And by elimination, it's like an elimination diet. You know, it's like, I'm going to eliminate dairy, then I'm going to eliminate gluten. You know, it's like that is actually a really good way to create boundaries on work product and help box in an engineer. Because a good engineer, man, they could go off in a million different directions. So part of being a good leader in the creative space is creating those boundaries, and those boundaries actually force a very high creativity.
Yeah, I would imagine it for you being the team leader, that keeping everybody focused in that direction and understanding that and knowing that that's something that you have to avoid. Like you said, this is something we're not going to do. And that's got to be somewhat hard for you, because I would have to imagine you've got that curious mind as well. And you've got that whole warehouse and the whole company, you know, that you can go any day and just pick something up and say, I want to try this because I was thinking about it while I was driving home from work last night.
Yeah, I said that's a technique I use for my team and myself. I think I use it for myself. I try to use it for myself more than my team, because even I can go down some holes that I get going too deep, too far on a tangent for far too long, and it helps to kind of box myself in.
That's interesting that you say what you guys aren't going to do. Now, some time ago, early on in the podcast, I have a dear family friend that he was number 2 at Johnson Controls. He was going to be number 1. And they went from, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were about a $80 million a year company to it was more than that, about 100 million, but they went to 20 billion.
Whoa.
Over the course of his time there. And it wasn't, he's the first to say, it wasn't me. There's just the people they had involved. But when he got to the really high status, number 2, number 3 in the company, he and his management team, they sat down, and their first meeting was not what they were going to do to hit the goals that the company had set forth. It was, what won't we do under any circumstance?
Yeah.
So in that big corporate world, it was, we're not going to lay people off to hit a stock number. We're not going to cut benefits. We're going to do absolutely everything possible that we can.
Love that.
So along the same lines, and it's no surprise. I mean, everyone watches you guys. You're an industry leader, and it's like, well, it's no surprise. Look at what they do. Now, maybe I'm partial to that because I've had so many of you guys on the show, and
Yeah.
I've seen you present at Coach Camp and at PGA shows and things like that. So I'm in the industry and I see it, but everybody's got to see it. The products you guys put together, the players that you have, it's the whole thing.
Yeah, it's been fun, and Paul and Eric and I, being on this team together, we've been together maybe 15 years, and the three of us have just an amazing crew of engineers that are, again, just all on a very unified mission, which is, hey, keep asking questions, figure out good ways to solve them, and we've been able to both create, and technology has caught up to us in such a way that I think, as Eric said, we've been able to answer questions, get to the fundamental physics deeper. And we have at Ping, one of our advantages is just we've been able to develop really good predictive models. And the advantage of that is now we can do prototyping virtually instead of having to make a lot of physical parts. We can do virtual prototyping. So you're just using cloud computing and you're just going to town on analysis you can do in the virtual domain, and then it makes your product development, your insights, everything like a little faster and a little shorter to innovate, and it just helped our velocity of innovation.
I had Ishmael Ben Hayoun. You know Ishmael from Altair. He was on, and he does AI work, and he works for all the big. I think Eric said that he's talked to him a number of times on a couple of different things, but and he was explaining how AI is influencing club design, and exactly what you said. It allows to build a model to say, instead of taking 9 to 12 months of here's what the science we have says. Now let's make a prototype or a couple prototypes, and then we'll put it through the testing process of the machines and then the players. And it's like, no, we can cut that down to weeks now.
Yeah, really fun. And but I think the thing about golf which makes it hard is you can't like design something for a robot or just one swing. Like, for example, I think a lot of people for a long time thought we did shaft testing on a robot, or they think, hey, shaft testing on a robot sounds like a good idea. That is actually a really bad idea.
There's no load.
Nobody applies the force and torque along the shaft like our Pingman does. So we actually don't use Pingman for shaft testing. We use a 3D motion capture system. But the good news is now we can tie that human data and all the variability associated with it, the variability in the loads and the forces and the torques, the variability in face delivery, the variability in impact location, and we can feed that variability into our predictive models, right? And that has produced some magical results. A real life example of that, Pete, is our latest G430 driver with a face design, which we call spin consistency, which stands for spin consistency, kind of married together. But at the end of the day, what that means is we've created a face curvature that offsets the gear effect the perfect amount based on the MOI of the driver. So you can thin the driver and the spin won't go up. It stays the same. And then what does the golfer do? If your spin stays the same, you swing harder because your driver is more forgiving. Doesn't matter if you thin it a little bit. And that's where the whole kind of self-correcting driver concept, very stable spin, was kind of born from.
It sounds like what you're able to do is really narrow down, make everything streamlined, more efficient. And I go back to, I don't remember what coach I was talking to some time ago, but I remember about 20 years ago, Sports Illustrated had their expose. The article was roughly 20 some pages long, and it was, are home run hitters born or are they made? And they had what was the big dude from Philadelphia, Howard, I can't remember his full name, him, and they had a bunch of guys, Barry Bonds obviously was in there. So this was going back a number of years, but the gist of the article basically said that motion recognition for sports that either deal in baseball, you got a pitcher; in martial arts, you have an opponent. If you're a swing coach like myself and some others, that you can eliminate where the person is going to move to based off where they are in a certain position because they can't move to that other spot. So you start to look at very, very finite areas. And I always said that the better the player, the smaller the area you're looking to. It's like looking through a keyhole versus a window. But and people say, how do you do that? I mean, Dad would always say, how do you do that with a really good player? I said, well, you over so many years, decades of doing this, you start to identify where people can move to. So I'm looking in very certain areas, and then if I'm only looking in 2 or 3 for a certain individual, it makes it much easier for me to figure out what they're doing. Sounds like you guys are with the technology that you have with shafts and heads and everything else and balls, that's what you're able to do with all those things.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that the difference between a better player and a beginning golfer. Another good example there is not everyone needs the same face curvature design on their driver. So, we fed in through our Focal 3D motion capture system the face delivery for better players, and then we tie that to our predictive ball model, which drives the engine of Ballnamic and other things. It's the same kind of core physics engine, and we can say, hey, at high speeds with this impact and phase delivery variability, what does the curvature need to get to be for the driver to have the right gear effect? So when you toe the drive, it starts far enough to the right to counter the side spin put on it. And that face shape is different for a high handicap player than it is for a low handicap player. And that's why we have a little tighter bulge on our LST driver, so that when you toe it, you want to send the ball more to the right, because at high speeds, that spin axis is going to result in more curve back to the center line. So we are getting more and more granular on the individual level demographic golfer, right? And I think that is super fun and super compute AI, but AI is all dependent on like the models you use to train it, which Pete. So
as well as the data you input into it,
the training data in the physics models. So you got to have all of that synergizing and working together.
I get that completely, because I spent about 4 years in some very high-end detailed club fitting, and the guy I worked for, he had been doing it for 35 years, and that was almost 20 years ago. He's retired now, but the amount of detail but he had a computer system that he had written, a program that I think he said it did 30,000 calculations, and then gave the recommendation for what your shaft frequency should be, as far as steel versus table rolled versus filament wound graphite. At that time, filament wound was the top dog. And people would ask him, well, whether my clubs are right or they're off a lot, how does that affect your recommendation? And he said it will. That's a very good question, because if somebody's clubs were, let's say, their iron shafts were 25 to 30 cycles off, I mean, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, it is going to affect this, but that's why I review it. And, we would take people through a hitting session, and he would make the modifications as needed. And I think he had, at some point before I met him, he had built that into the program to, if something is drastically off, then there has to be something. But and I don't know if people grasp that. They just see AI, or they think technology, and they think, oh, it's going to be ideal. But it does have to deal with, here's what you're inputting. If the input is skewed, then it's going to could be a faulty recommendation, although it is getting better. It's learning as it goes.
Yeah. And I'm in the business where my team is, we're developing AI. Like we are training the models. We're developing the AI in our Copilot tool. It basically is AI. AI is kind of a algorithmic compute of some algorithm that happens on a computer, and we continue to get better and better at that. But I think that is very good news for the teacher, is that in not anywhere soon will your skills be replaced by AI, right? Because in golf, it's you're still going to need to have that interface of the physical domain and how the player responds to it, right? So it's like, yes, we can narrow you down from 1,000 shafts we have to offer down to 3 to 5, but in no way are we going to eliminate, hey, we got to try these 1 and 2 and see how you respond to them. I think that's very good news for the fitter and the golfer. But while at the same time, I'm hyper optimistic that we're going to keep building tools to help narrow you down. This is why, like on Ballnamic, Pete, we don't give we don't give you one ball and that's going to be the perfect ball. We give you 4 or 5 rank ordered that are in a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that are the highest probability to be the best match for you. And we've been very transparent about that in how we do all of our algorithms and in everything, is to really help narrow you down quicker, but never replace the human. And that's not going to happen anytime soon in the golf world.
Well, I think so many people are so different in that no matter how much technology we have, and maybe it gets to a point at some point in time. I mean, Scott Fawcett was on last month, and he said, we're going to get to a point where we just can't go any further. And I'm like, I don't know, Scott, people adapt.
Nah.
The human being will adapt to whatever's being put in front of it. And then,
exactly.
then you've got to measure that. And okay, AI, how do you fix this? So it's going to continual evolution. But as I think what we have found, at least in the golf world, with the technology, because I think going back roughly 20 years, we gathered all this information and ways to measure with TrackMan, FlightScope, and all the other great gears and everything else that's out there. And you guys have a lot of that and your own things, and you're developing your own AI.
Yeah.
But I think as you go along, that there is we're realizing what we knew to start, and that everybody is different, and we can get you close, but then there is the human element, as you just alluded to, that you've got to go out and either do it on your own and tell us which feels better or what feels worse, or get with your coach and work together and say, I think this is, and then where you're coming from. Like if you're coming from a ball that's too soft and you're going, and Ballnamic recommends a firmer ball, and you say that ball is just too hard. It's like, yeah, but you got to consider you were 5 levels too soft, and so we need you to now making that big a jump might be too firm, but we'll eventually get there. But let's take it one step at a time, maybe. But here's where you need to get to.
Yeah, Pete, I think one other theme I've tried to bring to my job is I have a lot of empathy to the regular everyday golfer, to try to bring them access to things that the tour players get. Mm-hmm. Right. I've been on the other side of this. I've played in over 10 tour events, and I've been serviced like a tour player. So I try to, but I don't want to be like, hoity toity here, I can get anything I want. I want to be, I'm trying to turn that into, well, oh man, our end customer can't quite get that. And not all of them can come in here and go into our focal. Not all of them can go have an array of, you walk up to at the tour range, go pick which one of the 10 balls you might use this week and hit them on the range, or go chip them around the green, warm up with them, measure how they fly, chip them around the green for 10 hours, right? Not everyone can do that. So what I've tried to do is say, okay, how can we bring that access to that to the everyday golfer? So Ballnamic is like that. Like that's one example. Like you can't go buy all those balls and test them and hit them with no wind and look at the aerodynamics and chip them around the green and measure how they feel in the putter and how they spin when it's wet and dry and fly on irons and drivers and aerodynamics and all that stuff. But we've done it for you, and you can get access to that for a 5-minute survey. So it's like, that's kind of what I've tried to do. I mean, I was very empathetic to the end golfer that they couldn't adjust the left-right bias or CG on their driver. So I led the design of the G410 driver. I was like, we need to bring that. Yes, our tour players can add some hot melt to the heel and toe, but your fitter and your end golfer can't do that. You know, so I want to keep bringing those things to the marketplace, and the future is very bright on that, because, for example, the tour player has most or a lot of them have full-time statisticians, right? And they're looking at their shot link data. They're giving them core strategy. They're looking at, hey, if you improved your driving by, 0.2 strokes gain driving, that's going to move you from here to here on the money list and keep you ahead of these other guys. That level of service will become available, and we're building tools for that right now. We have one in our Ping Nation called My Game Insights, where we're looking at golfers' Arcos data. We're wearing the data science hat. We're algorithmically determining if you have any gaps in your game, and we are messaging you within your portal to say, hey, this might be an area of concern. Go see your club fitter, right? So we're on our journey to that. That's why the future is very bright. I got to disagree with Scott again on that one. Like, I don't think we're anywhere close to,
I don't
hitting
so
the limit.
But and we've had discussion off the air, and he's going to come back on again at some point. We're going to talk about do we have conscious thought or decision making, or is it predetermined? I know he's a big Sam Harris fan, and I've read a lot of things like that. But there is the math can take you to a certain level, but I told him in an episode the other day, and I've told a lot of my math friends who have more degrees than I do in math. I don't have any. But I said, the question I always ask them is, do you love your wife and kids, or do you love your husband and kids? And they say, of course I do. What kind of dumb question is that? I say, well, how do you know if you can't measure it?
Yeah.
Or how do you measure it? And so that and I'm sure if Scott hears this, he'll shake his head. And idiot and thing. But
I'll tune
so
in for that one. That interests me for sure.
how did you see that with the Ballnamics when you started putting that together? What was the thing that caught your eye that said, hey, I think there's an opportunity here that we can expand upon or make that is really a void out in the market, that we can really not only fill a void, but produce something that's really meaningful to the people who come to us for help.
Yeah, Pete, I'll tell you the exact moment that happened in my golf career was 2018, and I was getting ready for the PGA Professional National Championship, and it was at Black Horse Bayonet in Monterey, sea level, and very windy, and it's got that that sea level wind.
Yes.
And we had just launched the G400 Max driver, and this was a couple months before that tournament. My game was pretty good at that point in time. It was 2018. And I absolutely loved the G400 Max driver. And I was getting fit for it by our tour rep, Brad Millard here. And I got the launch perfect. In the spin, I could not get the spin down below like 2,700 because it was a deep CG high MOI driver. And it was spinning at like 27 to 2,800. And I was like, man, that's just like a little too high. I needed like 300 less. But then if I shortened the length, I would lose ball speed. I tried that a little bit. I tried de-lofting it with the CG with the hosel sleeve that we have, and then I would launch it too low. And if I ever start seeing too little off, I'd start tipping back and doing bad things biomechanically. So he was like, "Oh, Marty, man, let me go back. Let me go into the back. We just got these balls for Tony Finau." And he loved that driver, and he just hit these, and it made a huge difference. So he comes out. I don't even know what these golf balls are. I put some on, he throws them to me, tour style. I put some on the tee, I hit it, and it is an entire window of flight lower. Like an entire window, like 15 feet lower or whatever. And I'm like, holy moly, what just happened? You just give me a golf ball that went from like up here to down there. And so I hit like 5 drives. I was like, this thing is perfect. Like, what is this? And then I look at the TrackMan numbers, Pete. This was the moment. And I was like, what is the spin on those last 5 drives? And I was thinking it'd be like 2,300 or something. And I look at the TrackMan average for those 5 drives, same exact spin, 2,800. And I was like, what? What is going on?
Can't be. There's got to be something wrong.
That was the moment where I was really validated that spin only tells you half the story. You can have a ball that spins high and flies low, and you can have a ball that spins low and flies high. And everyone doing ball testing indoors, I'm sorry, you got no chance. You don't know how that
you're missing like the Indiana Jones. You remember the original one where the guy burns the emblem on his hand?
Yes.
And then they're digging and they say, well, they're digging in the wrong place because they didn't have the other half of the medallion. So when people like in certain things in the game, I say, well, you're digging in the wrong place, and what you just hit the nail on the head with the same thing. That if someone's fitting inside and they're just spin, it's like it's not the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that was the major moment. We've always done tons of ball testing. I mean, Carson has a famous quote that was, "The golf ball is the tuning fork to performance, and it tells us what to do." That was his quote that I always remember. And Ping used to make balls. We're not going to make balls, but we want to be the expert at custom fitting balls, because let me tell you why that's important. I could then play the G400 Max driver with more loft. It worked good for me biomechanically. I saw more loft on the face. I can play a higher moment of inertia driver where the spin was technically not perfect, but I could use golf ball to get it perfect. Like the ball, and that was the Pro V1 left dot, had an effective spin that's like 300 RPM. And when I say effective, that's what it did aerodynamically downrange.
Yeah, it's not floating once it hits peak, or
correct.
Once it starts to lose velocity, it doesn't start to float.
Yeah, so it flies way lower than it spins, than the spin suggests that it should, but it was still very high spin around the green because that's important to me, right? So it had characteristics that were very important to me. And then the other piece is a golf ball with kind of low lift and drag characteristics can also fly straighter. This is probably an unknown thing out there, unleveraged concept, is that if you play a low flying ball, it will also go straighter and you'll hit more fairways and less foul balls, right? So that doesn't mean that's the right ball for everybody, but we also can use golf ball to increase distance on your irons, land steeper on your irons. We can use the golf ball to, if you're underspinning your driver, the opposite of me. you like the LST, you hit high on the face. Maybe your ball speed isn't such that you can live with such low spin. We can use your golf ball to keep the ball in the air, right? Or maybe you don't like spinning it around the greens. You're a chip and run player. You don't want it to check up. We can we can give you a golf ball that rolls out more. You're more of a bump and run style of player. So that's what the code we wanted to crack. We've always done a lot of ball testing. We have a really cool equipment for that. And, we do testing most of the time in the pitch black when it's dark and use radar to measure how it flies. And
you guys are doing that stuff at like 2 a.m, aren't you? We
usually do it super early. Yeah, several hours. And the reason why, Pete, is that the temperature, you want to control your temperature to gradient from when you start your testing to end to be very tight. And so that's the time window when there's usually very low wind and very minimal change in temperature. If you kind of plot temperature throughout the day.
Yeah,
so,
it makes sense, especially out there in the desert, because you're not you're not getting big barometric swings or anything that I can imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that was it's been a really fun product. And anyone who comes and gets fit by us by Ping gets a ball fitting with your fitting. And we do that because now we can marry those two things together, which again, to tie it all back to the story here, that's exactly what tour players do. It's exactly what tour players do. They fit their ball to the driver and they do it in a never-ending synergy right there.
As far as ball fitting in general, it used to be you would, well, I used to tell people, at least when this is going back probably about 18 years ago, when balls really when basically the Pro V came out.
Yeah, right.
And then it really started accelerating from there. That things were changing. But I used to tell when I was working as an assistant before I went to play, I would tell members, you need to really fit from the green backwards. Because back then, you remember, there weren't a lot of face inserts. So it wasn't like you could play a firmer ball now with a softer insert in the putter. But I was like, go really around the greens, not even so much with the putter, but around the greens. See how, if it spins the way you want to, as you alluded to. Because at that time, drivers were getting into the fitting and being able to, that was right before hosels came out and you could change hosels. But it was known to be coming. So we knew that was on the way. But I said, yeah, go there, because you can always adjust with the driver head and the shaft. But you need to be able to have it react the way that you want it to on the greens, or else you're going to fit it to a driver and you're going to get to the greens and say, this isn't how I want it, and you got to start over again.
Yeah. I think what we've tried to do with Ballnamic is make it so you don't have to, you as the user using Ballnamic can control what's important to you, right? So green side is super important. But Ballnamic, you don't have to sacrifice one thing for the other. It's going to give you the best overall match, right? For driver, irons, flyer prevention, wind, wedge / green side.
That flyer prevention is mind-boggling. I saw that. It feels on the flyer prevention. I mean, how do you come up with flyer prevent? They actually have balls that will fly out of the rough less than other balls.
And I'll tell you how that works. Is it's much like our finish on our irons and our wedges does, which certain balls can have better frictional properties, and especially when you introduce moisture. And we've done a lot of cool testing on friction spin. I mean, Dr. Eric Hendrickson's the leading expert on that. We do testing on our Pingman where we will spritz. We have robotically controlled spritzers that spritz the ball in the face, the perfect amount, the same level every time. And then we measure spin retention when the ball's wet versus dry. And that correlates really well to whether they will get a flyer, which is a slip in friction conditions out, on the course, right? Out of the rough. So, or a dewy morning. And so that's how we came up with that flyer prevention score. And it's a measured thing in our robotic testing. That's what robots are really good for ball testing. They're not good for shaft testing, but they're really good for ball testing.
for someone who gets to test all these different things, and you're coming up and you're seeing, you're maybe middleman is the bad word, because I can only say that because you're getting it from the scientists, and then you're also seeing what the consumer, what that the consumer is going to need, and you're kind of pulling that all together.
Exactly.
Is there one that you have more fun with, if we divided it into drivers, irons, wedges, putters?
Oh,
ball?
Man.
Is there one that's more enjoyable?
Drivers are always fun because it's the most important club for scoring and you can make the biggest gains. So I like the driver. If we get somebody in that's very misfit on the driver, misfit. Maybe they hit it really straight and they're trying to find ways to hit it longer. We just have an amazing tool set for driver fitting. We know how to get somebody dialed into the absolute perfect launch conditions, and if not, we can micro tweak it with the golf ball. And we have such great product that we're now able to. This might be a little bit of a hot take, but we're fitting a lot of golfers into longer drivers because our driver is so forgiving. We're going longer. Victor Hovland is the world's best example of this. He went from 44 3/4 to 45 3/4. And he is like near the top in strokes gained driving, and yet everyone still thinks you got to play the tours playing 44-inch drivers and all this stuff. Those days are gone, ladies and gentlemen.
Especially so long, what as you describe, where you can control the curve, but depending on the individual, and then with players working out and their ability to move a longer lever and not lose speed, because everyone thinks, well, if I get a longer driver, I'll swing faster. It's like, well, the majority of the people that are members at clubs, they show up with a 47-inch driver. I say, you're actually going to swing it slower, and they don't believe me. And I take the radar out, and here you go. But some players, and as you mentioned, that can move it, and they've got the physical fortitude to do so.
Pete, we're doing a lot of research in that category. So you can go a little bit longer, but there's an optimization there on head weight, which is I think exactly what you highlighted, is that if you don't control the head weight, you can reach a point where you swing it slower, or maybe you swing it faster, but you lighten the head too much to get the swing weight, and then your ball speed's lower. So ultimately, at the end of the day, for distance, ball speed is king. We do not look at smash factor because that can be misleading, but ball speed is king. And we want to try to maximize ball speed while being mindful of dispersion. That's kind of our high-level goal in driver fitting. We want to minimize curve. I know that's another thing Scott and I don't see eye to eye on, but I love the beauty of the dead straight shot because it's maximally efficient. If you have no curve on your drive, you are losing no distance to the curve. And distance is more important than accuracy at a ratio of 3-to-1 for most golfers, right? And so because of those things, we like getting drivers to be zeroed out from a spin axis or curve standpoint. And generally speaking, unless you have a lot of speed, then you can curve it a little bit here or there based on your visual preference or what have you, or mechanical preference. But yeah, that is we're doing a lot of work and we have a lot of discretionary weight in our drivers now, especially like G430 Max, where we can control that head weight, go a little bit longer while optimizing the head weight. And we've actually done, Pete, a lot of research using the Stack data to figure out players' different sensitivity to adding and subtracting weight. You and I both might swing the driver at the same club head speed. Let's say we're both 115 on average, but you start putting more mass in my driver, my speed might plummet quickly, and you might be able to maintain it. And because you can maintain it, you can play a heavier headed driver and get more momentum, mass times velocity. We are getting really into the nitty gritty on that stuff. And that's where the Stack data is kind of driving our head weight data on the ping side, which is super, super fun.
Does any of that have to do with the arc of that somebody swings? So for example, if they're taller or have longer arms and that, so their natural arc on a driver would be longer. I remember it was always some of the engineers I knew years ago. Some of the old timers would say, you can't, like I'm 6'5", and my arms aren't long for my height, but they said at your arc, your driver head, you can't be up there at 302 and 305, or even you can't be way up there. You're going to get too heavy. You're not going to be able to control it. Or at that weight, even if you think you control it, you're off a little bit. That MOI is going to start sending it in crazy directions. Your misses are going to be pronounced.
Yeah, I think we got to, I don't know if you've had Sasha on yet or not, but that's a great question for him. Like, what is the causal reason that might make you maintain your speed adding weight different than me? It might have to do with your fast twitch muscle fibers and how your muscle fiber is composed. I actually don't know the answer. I do
he's
know
coming
what
on
happens.
next week. Yeah, he's coming. We're talking about
question for him
for the third time. So and because I tell you, I did the cardinal sin. I mean, Andrew Rice told me a long time ago, if you're going to get on YouTube, the number one thing to do is not engage with trolls. Well, I made the mistake because I had a video on spining of a shaft. I said it's number one, it's a I called it a weak point as coming from someone who worked in the development of them. So, okay, the guy argued, I said, okay, fine. You put the weld seam on, it's a strong point. I get it, same thing.
Yeah.
I said, but so whether you put it at 6 or 12, so you're going to gain stability on toe droop, but you're going to lose some stability on face control. And if you put it at 3 and 9, you're going to gain face control, you lose toe stability, droop. And I said, but that's so minuscule that it's very, very difficult to measure that, at least with the equipment that I was privy to. Now, maybe today you guys will be able to measure that. I said, but the bigger picture is there's nobody on the planet that is going to swing that well that they're going to be able to notice the difference.
Yeah. We could have a whole pod on spining. Sasha actually did some really good research on this.
So I messaged him and I said, "Look, Sasha, I made this mistake of getting into this guy." I said,
"You went down the rabbit hole."
I said, "So, what do you think of spining?" He said, "Well, why don't I come back on and talk about it?" So he's coming on next
Perfect. So you guys can go down that. But yeah, when we did that study with him, I'm sure he'll say this. We had a hard time finding a shaft that had a big enough difference in stiffness properties around there. I think the proof's in the pudding. Like, we'll have a tour player in, and they'll need to change their hosel position, which we have 8 of them. Mm-hmm. So you change the hosel position by 45 degrees. The tour players do that day in and day out, and they don't care. They don't care with the orientation of the shaft.
Well, I told the guy, I said, "Look, buddy," I said, I no doubt that you and your buddies that you fit. And I said, but first of all, you got to remember the shafts that I'm working with are not shafts that I'm getting on discount from Golfsmith or Golfworks for $3 a shaft.
Yeah.
So number one, get a higher quality shaft. Yeah. And the guys that I know are getting high quality shafts. The second thing, I said, I got 40,000 fittings that I'm basing this off of, not 400 or 40 or 4 or your anecdotal evidence. But and it's just like, okay, I'm out. I can't do this anymore.
But Pete, I think you and Sasha have fun on the shaft side. But I think drivers, to me, are the most fun because you can make the biggest difference to someone's game, to lowering their score. Quite frankly, it is really fun to hit your driver out there far and straight and hit it past your buddies.
Yeah, there's always, you get some ribbing going on there.
Exactly.
As we're talking about Sasha and you guys are the co-developers of the Stack, and I've been using it, and now I'm 51, so I it's like I use it for 2 weeks or so, and then I get sore, or I swing too hard, or I hurt something, or I'm in the gym and something's sore, and I go do the Stack, and I got to take time off. But it's done wonders for me as I was out from injury and being sick and things like that. So to go from where I was swinging, and I think I picked up 17 miles an hour, back up to about the other day, 114. When I started, I think I was at 105.
Lovely.
So it's getting back to, my brother said, you're never going to get back to your 120 plus. Like, you want to bet?
Nah, don't rule that out. Don't rule that out.
It'll be fun to get there, especially as, if I'm going to play some section stuff or try to play anything
what
senior.
An advantage. Yeah, you got to do that.
But it's been great. And so I definitely, obviously, as a co-developer of that, I just want to, I guess the first question would be the genesis is, were you guys just sitting around at dinner one night and just talking about things that your research you're doing and say, well, why don't we come up with something like this?
I mean, Sasha is full of infinite ideas to help the golfer play better. And they're all rooted more than probably anybody in the industry in fundamental good science and biomechanics. So he had been doing a lot of research in his lab on a small scale. I'll call it small scale, 20 players in, 40 players in his hometown, which is really funny. I've heard that over half the players in his hometown putt with heads-up putting, which is quite funny. You have to ask him about that. But he would have players come in the lab, and he was doing research on, his backgrounds in track and field coaching and some other things. And so he knew a lot about overspeed overload training and the fundamental science of that. And he was looking at some other products and techniques that others were doing it in the golf industry that were just not scientifically optimized. Because when you do overspeed overload training, you want to be very precise on your loads, right?
Like, it's got to be incrementally up. You can't overload the system.
Incrementally. Yeah, you can't throw the hammer down at it light. You can't swing like an alignment stick or turn your driver over and expect for it to have the efficacy or effectiveness is like what we're doing with the Stack. So he had been doing some research, and he was like, wow, I've seen some amazing gains. Like, the gains that now you and 30,000 other stackers are seeing. He had been seeing that in his lab. And so he came to us at Ping and was like, man, I've been doing this research. We should try to, but he was hacking it together with weights and washers and spreadsheets and all the timers and all this stuff. Right. And so he was like, I was personally interested, so I made my own hardware for it, and I did the protocol with the spreadsheet and some other stuff and timer apps and all this other stuff. I was like, holy moly, this really works. And so, yeah, we co-founded the company. I did all the work on the hardware design, and he did all the the algorithms. And we have another co-founder that built the app for us, and hopefully we've made the app, as you've seen, Pete, super fun to
Oh,
use.
it's so easy. It's unbelievable. I tell people it is. They'll mess with me. Like, well, how hard is it? Because I'm tech challenged. I said, dude, I'm the most tech challenged person on the planet.
Yeah.
So, and I said, this is the easiest thing that you can ever do. I said, the hardest part is you have to type in your speed for that swing, and then just wait for like 30 seconds or 15 seconds.
Yeah, and if you haven't tried it, Pete, use our voice mode. That's what I use. It's you turn the Siri on, you hit the little dictate button, and you swing, and you just talk your speed in. So you can be like
so it gets
104, and it just goes right in. So check that out if you didn't know about it. But so yeah, it's been awesome, and we, to have, it's the marriage of the hardware and the software together, and the software of the app is literally like having Sasho coach your speed training, which again, it's bringing that access to what the tour players have access to, exactly the app that Victor Hovland and Matt Fitzpatrick and Scott Stallings and all these guys on the PGA Tour are using to gain speed, tons of speed, or gain speed back in the case of Scott Stallings' case. In the everyday golfer has access to. We have what's really fun. I looked at this the other day. We have players who are as young as 6 years old and are as old as 92 years old that are stacking and either gaining speed, or if you get over the age of 45, if you maintain speed, you're gaining speed.
Yeah.
You're relatively gaining speed.
Where I knew when, I don't know, I think it had just come out, and Sasho had been actually the first video ability that I had on the podcast. Sasha, you guys, I think, had recently launched a stack.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago or so. And I said, well, you want to be the first one to do the video, because then you can demonstrate. And he did. And we talked, I think, either pre-show or after. And I said, I had been training from just injuries and other things, and studied. Charles Poliquin was one of the guys I studied very, very hard. He and Paul Check.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And I remember having the one of the classes and the lectures. Charles went over periodization on his training programs, and he was doing it, let's say, for world champ body builders and the athletes and the Olympians. And one of them was over when you were going into, let's say, 3 reps, and you would ramp up from like 85% of 1 rep max, and then you go all the way up to, it would go to 103 to 105 to shock the nervous system. And then you would come back down from, let's say, 105% of 1 rep max to 102, and then you'd come down. And once you got to 99 of 1 rep max, you thought that this isn't that hard, because you just shocked the hell out of your system. So as Sasha was telling me about it, it's like, this is genius. Whether he realized it or not, I don't know, but I'm kind of putting these two together, and I'm like, if they did this for the Olympians in their training for weightlifting or powerlifting or sport or whatever they were in, and you guys are doing this for golf, I said, this is going to be a home run.
Yeah, no, it's been really magical. I mean, the program just works. I mean, most people can't believe that's all you need to do. Like, as long as you're in decent enough physical condition, you don't need to do anything else. People think there should be more to it. You just every 2 to 3 days get your 20-minute stack session in, and that's it. Wait for the magic to happen.
I was going to say, with warm up, it's 30 minutes and you're done.
Yeah.
And you don't
I usually do it at my lunch hour here in the in the hitting bay.
Is there, that you guys have had it now for long enough, and obviously the feedback has been extremely positive.
Yes.
I know I have been very pro Stack, being an affiliate of you guys, and it's very easy to do so. Has there been any people saying that they have developed an injury, but whether at a wrist or something smaller, because maybe they're pushing too hard? Meaning, for those of you who don't know, there's a section where you swing with full intent, which is your driver speed, and then there's a max out where it's usually 4 swings at the end. But some people will use it incorrectly, and this isn't a knock on you, this is a knock on user error, where they're trying to go max effort through their training session.
Yes.
And maybe because the weights got heavier because they were going to the next level, that they're not able to hold it. Is there anything along those lines that
We've been very fortunate to not have like any significant injuries that we know about.
Good.
And Sasho kind of usually explains it that, we have had a lot of people get injured. We have had a lot of people get injured playing golf during the time where they're stack training. So your probability, this kind of reminds me of the whole pickleball thing. Oh, so many elder folks are going to see the PTs because of pickleball. I'm like, well, it's better than them sitting on the couch doing nothing.
Yes, that's a
So
good, like paying too much. Like you got to pay more in taxes. Well, you made more money. I mean, there's a good
exactly.
part of that.
So the stack is your way higher probability to. I mean, the forces of you hitting the ground and taking a divot out playing golf are orders of magnitude of anything you would see. With the loads you're putting on through your hands and wrists doing stack training, because you don't hit the ball, you don't hit the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So your probability of getting injured through those events is orders of magnitude lower than actually playing golf.
With the World Long Drive that just ended a couple weeks ago, have some of those players reached out to you guys for a modified version where the weights are more in tune to people who are swinging it?
It's pretty amazing.
50 miles an hour.
Yeah, no. So we have Martin Borgmeyer. He actually has a program in our app. So you can do the Borgmeyer program, which is a combination of using the stack, overload, overspeed training, along with some of his long drive movements and protocols that he actually does. Mm-hmm. So if anyone has been at any of the stackers that are out there, you're like 6 sessions in, you want to try something a little bit different, or you want to really emphasize driving distance, go in there and do the Borgmeyer program. It's actually really, really fun. In-app videos from him. And he developed all the programming in combination with Sasho. So it's that is quite fun. So he's done some stuff on stack. And the cool part is that we didn't have to make any special hardware for him. Like going up to 300 grams is plenty to scale from Martin Borgmeyer. And then you take all the weights off and you can use that for your trail arm and lead arm swings or junior golfers. So our hardware scales that whole spectrum.
That's pretty impressive because he's a big boy. And I had his coach. Yeah, I had his coach Lee Cox was on a couple weeks ago.
I saw that.
And he's a blast. Lee's just he's so funny. I loved having him on.
Yeah.
I want to go into some of the other fittings. So we talked about balls, we talked about drivers, but the wedge game has been very, very popular with the work that Joe and Victor have done.
Yes.
And you guys, I don't remember if it was you or Eric or somebody had a post where they were out there, and you guys had like, I don't know how many cameras. It looked like you were launching a spaceship, not golf balls from the hitting bay.
Yeah.
But you guys have done a lot of work, and I know Derek Dominski, you guys have brought him in. So can you talk a little bit about the wedges, because it is becoming a very, very specialized, more so than even in the past, area of the game to fit it along the lines of what you guys have done with balls and drivers?
Yeah, it's been fun to play a very tiny role in Victor's improvement to his short game. All credit to him and Joe for sure. But at the same time, he improved his technique in the things that him and Joe did, pivoting, lateral movement, forward, steeper, angle of attack, exiting quickly. We did have him out last week, and yes, we did have pretty much is the most measurement tech you can. We had a radioactive room going pretty much right there when we had him.
Were you all glowing when you walked out?
Oh yeah, he had his shirt off, markers all over the place, force plates, focal, foresight, high speed, 30,000 frames a second cameras, you name it, we had it.
Jesus.
And it was really fun. So yeah, we put a few videos out there. We got so much data with him. We need some time to synthesize it and process it. But him and Joe are really great at asking questions, and they have been great. We love it when the tour players stump us, like, hey, why is this happening? And Derek Dominski's been a big part of that. He's hitting a certain spin window at a certain speed, and hey, this
he's like a magician with that wedge.
He is really a magician.
He does. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah, really fun, really fun. But it all comes down to a lot of that work that Dr. Hendrickson is doing on the friction side. We feel like we're positioned to be the leading experts in friction between the ball and the club face, and that's what Joe and Victor are big fans of. So Victor changed wedges at the same time he changed his technique, and I don't think we can. Sometimes we kind of ignore that a little bit, like it's all technique, but he also got more friction between the ball and the club face. And so, and more friction in all weather conditions.
Well, it seems like in the in the short game area sector now, and I'll relate this somewhat to as we were talking a little bit about earlier in the driver sector. It's like the argument from engineers across the board that I can remember has always been, well, if you have a smaller head of the same weight, the MOI can be higher because it's more dense and you got more energy being delivered in a smaller area versus a bigger head. And I think Paul or Eric, we talked about that briefly, that you get too big and it just, you hit it shorter. But it's, and not to get down that rabbit hole, but to just use it to something similar to where you have very smart people arguing different points of view, is in the wedge game.
Yeah.
And I know this has been asked on Joe's Instagram page, and he said, look, I'm not a designer and I'm not an engineer, so I really can't get to that. But it seems like the discussion is leading towards, is bounce on wedges as important as it has always been believed to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the thing that makes wedges tough is the great short game players have such a variety of techniques. There is not one way to do it, and you got Victor coming in steep down 10, and you got other players that are shallow, and they're picking up debris and they're interacting with the turf well before they hit the ball. So there is a myriad of ways to do it, and that's what makes wedge fitting tough. That's what makes having the right amount of grinds and be able to get. I don't like the word bounce, because I don't think you want to bounce your way into the ball. That's why we named
odd.
That's why we named our wedges glide. I kind of came up with that name because I was like, well, you want a force balance like a plane. You want the force of the ball's going to push the club down, and you want the force of the earth push it back up. And that euphoric feeling when you get the right grind, to me, was like you're gliding. It's like the timing's perfect.
Yes, it's just so efficient and smooth through the turf. And then and then so you have that efficiency, and all of a sudden it's like the ball hits, and it's like, oh, there's that feeling, and then the efficiency just keeps going.
Yeah, but a good way to think about wedge fitting, and our wedge expert Jacob Clark, who designs our wedges, works with our tour players, develops some awesome grinds for us, is kind of like fitting for impact height. It's another good way to think about bounce fitting, is that you're fitting for impact height. So even if you had Victor and you gave him a wedge with too much angle, too much bounce height, that would interact the ground first, and it would change his ball capture and that ball capture timing. So I don't think that bounce fitting is any less important than it used to be. But it could be less important if you're super steep.
Yeah, I from my time in that, I know that heel drag played a big role. So I mean, I remember having guys that would have 14, 15 degrees of bounce, but when we took the heel drag off, they're like, I can open this up on really tight, firm conditions. Yeah, go ahead and open up, and they'd hit these cutters, and then they had the bounce for when they were in the sand and didn't want to open it up so much. So yeah, I'd always said bounce was, maybe, as you alluded to, a poor word.
Yeah,
it was breakdown semantics.
Yeah, but wedges are fun, and we got some really fun tools coming to the marketplace in early 2024 to help our fitters and golfers get into the right grind. And stay tuned for that, because we're very excited about some things we're working on right now. Super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it amazes me how you guys have all this new cool stuff that comes out every year.
It's like never ending. We got more coming.
Like, how do they keep doing it? Like that? Well, I mean, but as you said, as you do this research, and was it Eric or Paul that said you guys are as much a research company as you were an engineering company?
Yeah,
which plays a major
well
role
put.
in that.
Yeah,
the engineering, that's the creative aspect of it.
Yeah, the engineering is the productization of the R&D. So you got to have them both. And
you were the designer of the one set of irons, if I remember correctly, going back a number of years ago.
I've worked on a lot of everything. I've worked on groove designs, face friction, shafts, grips. I did the Answer irons, G20, G25, I-15, bunch of iron designs, and then a lot of drivers and metalwoods, hybrids, things.
The reason I remember that is because I remember that S56 and 57, 58 were phenomenal irons, and then your design was not long after those, and if I remember.
I didn't work on it personally on any of the blade irons. Corey Bacon, one of our lead designers who did the G430 driver, did the I-blade irons, and that was a very successful iron for us. And then fast forward to today, it's been on tour, but we can talk about we've launched the Blueprint S and the Blueprint T irons, which are by far our best kind of compact blade, better player irons.
God, it just keeps going, as you
Yeah.
said. No, I cannot have you on without talking about you're an exceptional player. And I mean, as you played in majors, I think, would you say 10 tour events?
Yeah, what is it? 6 majors, 5 PGAs, 1 U.S. Open, and then a bunch of times in the Vegas PGA Tour event. And then I played one time. So far, my career's not over. I played one time at the Phoenix Open a couple of years back.
I saw that. So that was one of the questions as far as the majors and the change and the energy level and the excitement at majors. It's completely off the chart. Just I had not ever gotten to that level of playing in one. But I've been to enough to know that it's a completely different atmosphere, and it's got to be behind the ropes. But one question is, I was looking at where you played and what you played, and I said, I got to ask him the difference between that level at a major and the 16th hole at the Phoenix Open. How are they anywhere? Well, I'll let you speak to the differences or the similarities between the two, because both have got to be crazy.
Yeah, I 16 was very interesting. You know what makes 16 okay is that you're hitting like a 9-iron or a wedge, you know. Kevin Stadler, who almost won the Phoenix Open, friend of mine from Colorado, and I played a lot of golf with him. We were playing a few practice rounds before I played the Phoenix Open there, and he goes, Marty, I don't care what is happening here with the wind or anything, always take one less club than what you think you're on 16 because you're going to be amped up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was right. And the other thing about 16 is now it's a total dome, and you can't see what the wind's doing inside of there. So you got to kind of, a lot of times the wind, it's downwind. In the days I played, it was a little bit, about like 10 or 12 miles an hour. And you got to kind of look at it right before you walk in the big Coliseum. It's like going to the Coliseum. And then you go in there and you're like, okay, I got to go with what I think the wind was. And I had actually hit 2 awesome shots on 16. And 16, I was not as nervous about, I got to be honest with you, because the whole scene doesn't go quiet. So it's like ambient noise. It'd be like playing a basketball game. And the fact that the whole place doesn't go quiet is actually a benefit.
Yeah, something to kind of just keep it just slightly distracted.
Yeah.
Like
if
white
you were
noise.
hitting like a 6-iron or something there, it'd be fine. But I flushed like a 9-iron one day, and then a pitching wedge the next day, and I hit 2 great shots.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine if you missed the green, especially being a hometown.
No, I didn't want that.
No, you do not live that one down.
No, I hit 2 good shots. I got some cheers.
As someone who is in the middle of advancement in the industry and technology and everything else, where do you see the next big shift in golf coming? Because and I say this to a lot of the scientists that come on the show, and have always had the opinion that usually the next great things come from the periphery. Because those who are involved, like Eric and Paul, they're so involved in what they're doing that they don't have the time to go out and say, hey, let me play with this and this and this, where you have a little more leeway, where you can transition from what they're doing to what the public is looking for. But as someone who has that ability, and what do you see as the next shift?
I think there's going to be better and better tools that are going to be affordable. We already see this. You can just connect the dots that the end consumer can can make really good decisions. And I think a good example of this is 10 years ago, TrackMan's $25,000. Now the consumer can buy a Mevo Plus for $2,000 or $1,800, whatever it is, and get really good launch condition data in their house, right? So I think the consumer is going to get more and more access to these high level tools, and we as the technologists will be able to build better and better tools to kind of empower the consumer directly. It's not going to, and they can go in and drive from the bottoms up better decisions with their fitters or about equipment. So I'm very optimistic about that. I'm optimistic about some technologies we're going to bring through cell phones and things of that nature, which will be able to pass along an experience that won't be like coming in our 3D motion capture system, but it will be, say, 90% as good, right? through AI and algorithms and things of that nature. So I'm very optimistic about that. And then optimistic about tying that connection between on-course play data and bringing that into your game. And again, that's what the tour players doing now. Some golfers are doing that, pretty well through Arcos or some of the
is
other
that the
shot.
connection to Arcos that you guys are able to do that?
Exactly. Yeah, we have a lot. We mine that database a lot, but I think the future will be kind of connecting that into your equipment design, just like the tour players do with their statisticians.
How do you, is the person that kind of oversees that, differentiate between taking the data and averages and things like that, and then fine tuning it to an individual? And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that, because Scott Cox and I were talking about something very similar a couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, in that if you look at the averages on the data, and I think everybody agrees that if you can hit it longer, and we've known this for a number of years, when what was the book, Golf Clubs and How They Work, I believe that they guys wrote about that. If you could hit it X amount longer, you're going to lower your stroke by an average of, I think now they're saying 2.2 or 2.5 strokes around as an average. I think that's a conglomerate of amateurs, and obviously not the tour level. But as Scott was saying, yes, he agreed that was true for a whole. But as he starts looking at his individual players, some of the world elite players that he has, is some of them who are already swinging or got ball speed at 180 plus. They're looking to hit 1 to 2 more fairways per round, because from what the data he had said, that his guys got to hit it wedge out of the rough to equate to 150 out of the fairway, that those numbers were equalized for some of his players. So they were looking more for accuracy, because hitting it longer at 182 ball speed wasn't necessarily going to, going to 185. Now you're starting to get maybe a little inability to control it. So how do you differentiate between what the data as a whole says and then what someone who's coming to you to kind of refine that?
Yeah, you made a couple good points there. One is that individual level optimization. I think that is going to be part of the future. We already have that now with individual fitting, but taking that on-course play data and bringing that into your fitting process to consider those sensitivities like Scott is doing, right? Now we've done, and my colleague Chris Brody, who's the son of Mark Brody, the godfather of golf statistics.
And he's your, I got to reach out to him to come on too. So at some point I'm going to have at some point the entire Ping company is going to be on the podcast.
You need to have Chris on, because he's the mastermind behind some Ballnamic. And this tool I was talking about is we actually have a tool in our Copilot suite, which is a tool we have for fitters, where it does that distance to accuracy trade-off for you, rooted in strokes gained driving. So you can go in there with a driver and say, hey, should I play this longer 46-inch driver? And you do a TrackMan session or Foresight session, and you get the dispersion data and you get the distance gain data. You type in your distance and your dispersion, your left-right dispersion, and then you put that up against maybe shorter driver for more control. Maybe you hit it 12 yards shorter, but your dispersion was X amount tighter. You hit calculate, and it calculates your strokes gain driving, how much you netted from distance gain and dispersion. And our fitters, this is a live tool. Our fitters are using it. This is not a theoretical thing. This is a real product that we use in our driver fitting to help. Scott needs our tool, man. We need to get hooked up. I'll give it to him.
I'll message him, or I'll send him the show and what Marty said.
Okay.
What for some young kids out there, maybe they're in high school, they're in college, or they're getting ready to graduate, and they were someone like you or myself 25, 30 years ago. What's your best advice to them now? Because the world has changed so much. What would you tell them?
It's a good question. I think the ultimate meta skill is the skill to learn new skills. I think that's the biggest thing. Like you can go to high school, you can go to college, you can learn some technical things or not, whatever domain you want to study. But when you get out in the real world, that's where the real learning begins, and things are so open-ended. You have to learn how to solve open-ended problems. And the key to doing that is to be really good at defining the problem. Start with the end customer and work backwards, right? What is the pain point of the end customer? So I think that would be a big one, piece of advice. The other one that I think has embodied myself in my own career is kind of this, you probably heard of this Scott Adams, comedian guy. He's got this theory that it's very rare mathematically for you to be the best at one thing, but you can be in the top 5% of 3 things, and that'll make you very unique. And I think that's been kind of, in hindsight, I didn't do this on purpose. This is an accident. But I'm not the best golfer, but I'm in the top whatever, couple percent of golfers.
Right.
I'm not the best designer or researcher, but I'm in the top couple percent. And the fact that I've combined all those together is kind of what has made things unique. So that could be, if I were a young person, you can kind of think about maybe how to, instead of that happening by accident, try to curate that into whatever you're curious and have passion for. And you don't need to shoot to be the best. Be in the top couple percent of some unique categories and try to combine that together.
Yeah, and it keeps, as I look at you and what your position is, and we discussed tonight, and like Como, I watched Como. You know, he teaches, and then he does his show, and then he goes and he does lectures and research, and he's all over the country and the world and doing the coolest things. And it keeps you, as you had already alluded to, you don't ever get bored. It's like when you get out of bed, it's like, okay, what do I get to do today?
Exactly.
So getting out of bed becomes much easier instead of laying there and like, oh, I got to go do this again today for the 4 millionth time.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to do multiple things at one time. I mean, we were talking about Elon a little bit before the show. It's like, man, you know, whether you like some of what he's doing or not, you know, to me, it's inspirational and challenges you to think big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pursue your interests. If you have an interest in something, then pursue it. Don't give up or give in to failure. I think all of us have failures. I guess that would be one last question I'd want to ask you is, how do you, when you work on something, and you guys put a lot of time and effort and blood and sweat, and as you know, 2 a.m, you guys are measuring balls and things like that.
Yeah.
But when you do put that kind of effort in, and something doesn't work out as planned for a number of reasons, the market wasn't ready, or there wasn't the technological support for it, or just the consumer wasn't ready, or the messaging was wrong. That's got to gut punch you a little bit. But how do you guys recover from it? Do you immediately pivot and say, we've got enough things going on, we don't have time to sit here, and we've got other stuff to do, or how do you process that?
Yeah, no. Sometimes if you worked on a project for a very long time, it's painful, you know, and it fails. You don't get it to market, or, you know, whatever, you know, pull the plug on a concept idea or something where you got a lot of sunk cost. There could be a lot of pain from that. I think the key is to try to turn it into a positive and learn. I think the culture of learning, and anytime we do a project, we incentivize learning. What did you learn? We have a project look back. What would I do different next time? Right. And I think that's very important to, like Eric said, schedule time to do that. And internally, we incentivize learning as much as the external commercial success of a product. Right. And that's helped us get that compound interest in our product development process. So, and I think to have a long perspective, I always like to have, like, you know, urgency with your R&D and actions, but have a very long perspective on the industry. And I think that is that's a key to stay optimistic.
Yeah, it's a long game. I mean, life and career and industries are long games.
Sean Foley. So I was on the range at a PGA championship, and I asked Sean Foley. I was like, because I was a little nervous, you know, I wasn't swinging as good as the tournament that got me in there. This is the PGA championship in St. Louis at Belle Reef. And I was just talking to him about, you know, hey, you know, got any advice for me, or this, that, and the other. And he said, life is long. And I was like, wow, that's deep, man. And I always remember that.
I had another buddy who was a world champion martial artist, and I had just come off missing. I basically was ended when I was done playing, and I just missed Q school first stage this time. I think I was well within I think I was in third place going to the final round. I played terrible the final. I think I shot 77 or 8 and miss, and that was I knew I was if I didn't get through that year, that was done. And here I am cruising, and then I miss, and we were at dinner one night, and we were talking, and he said, you know, old school. There are old stories of martial art guys, but one of the big ones he said that might help you is when you're walking down a hill or up a hill. Take whichever one, mostly up the hill. He said you're looking at the mountain you're walking up to, and of course it's to face an enemy. So you're looking at your enemy, but you're also looking at the entire mountain. He said you got too focused on the small thing, and your perspective of the big thing got lost. So he said you got to do both simultaneous, which is what makes it hard and why not everybody can be at the top level. But that made a lot of sense. That hit home.
Yeah. Pete, I think maybe we can end with this is that you mentioned before we started, but most of the time you play golf, man, you lose. You know,
Yeah,
if you want to view it that way, and I try not to, but it is one way to look at it. It's so rare, even if you're a big fish in a small pond and win a lot of tournaments, like you're probably gonna lose more than you win. So
exactly.
that's like, what did you learn? What did you learn from that round, and how can you use it to get better? And I try to bring that same attitude into the working world. So
Well, you guys are doing a hell of a job at it. You've had plenty of more successes than failures, at least from what I can see. And
we got more coming, so it's exciting time, very exciting time.
you got a few minutes. We'll wrap up with emergency nine
Let's
fun
do it.
questions just to end it on, have some fun. So the first and the last one I tell everybody, they're the same for everyone. Everyone gets them, and it just kind of keeps some
Cool.
structure with some creativeness, as your guys' motto is. So you play really well next year. You play so well that you get picked for that next year will be the President's Cup. So they're gonna play your walk up song to the first hole. What are you gonna have them crank out on the sound system?
I like this song. Who is it by? I'm not even a huge fan of this style of music, but DJ Snake, he's got this song called Bird Machine.
I've heard it.
And my nickname is Dirty Bird, and so sometimes I'll play that song real loud in my car before I go into a tournament. Gotta get myself in the mood to make some birdies.
All right.
Bird Machine.
Would you rather play Augusta or have Masters badges for life?
Oh, play it. I'm a PGA member. I already got Masters badges for life.
Yeah, exactly.
I did my time.
Let's see. Hollywood calls you. They said, Marty, we've been watching you from afar. We really like your story. We're going to do a movie about you. Who we'll let you pick what actor plays you. Who are you going to pick?
Matthew McConaughey.
Pretty good one. Your wife would like that one.
Yeah, exactly.
She'd get to meet him, and I'm sure she'd have a great time in the process. Let's see. If you could sit in a golf cart and talk to anybody throughout history for an hour or so, who would you pick?
Golfer.
Pick anybody you want to.
I think I'd say, man, this is a tough one to pick somebody who's living, because it's like, hey, man, how myopic are you? But I would say Elon. You know, I love the way he uses first principles and makes real life solutions. Like he's not a theorist. You know, he delivers real solutions and he thinks big. Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, that because I was listening to him on Rogan the other day, and it's like he doesn't do things just to do them. He gives them a lot of serious thought, puts a lot of thought into it, and how it affects the entire dynamic of humanity and civilization, and not just his companies or personal reasons. Let's see. Someone gives you $25,000 in a first class ticket, you and your missus, anywhere you want to go. Where are you going?
Where would we go? Bora Bora. Always want to go there. Just me and her. That looks like a sweet place.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Hey, have you ever seen the Tony Robbins, the guy that the reporter? He was like a 25-year-old reporter from some New York magazine, and Tony Robbins has that big island that he bought down somewhere in the Pacific. And they go down there, and the kid just like, Tony's having him in. He does his ice bath. He does his song. He does the whole thing. And that kid was just like, holy shit, this is amazing. Yeah, that place does look awesome. Unbelievable.
Oh, it looks so sweet.
Let's see. So you're old enough that you were very familiar with all three of these. So which one is your favorite? Caddyshack, Happy Gilmore, or Tin Cup?
Caddyshack.
Yeah, me too.
Caddyshack, for sure. They're all good in their own ways.
You walk into McDonald's, what's the first thing you're going to order?
Oh, dude, I'm not a McDonald's person, but what I do love is when we're on the road, I get we drive through there with my kids right now. I just get a large club soda. That's it.
Really?
Or coffee, or a black coffee. I'll do black coffee from McDonald's. The coffee's pretty good there.
All right, cool. Your best and or favorite purchase under $1,000 in the last year?
In the last year.
I know you got kids. If you want to stretch it out a little longer, you got young kids, so maybe you're not dropping.
I tell you what, man. One of the things, this is more than a year ago, so I'll stretch it out a little bit. Is a chili pad. I bought a chili pad for for sleep. And in Arizona, man, my house is hot. It gets hot in the summer, even with the air conditioner running. You can't get the whole room cool. So that chili pad with cools your
I've been looking at that
thin mat in Arizona. That's been a game changer for my sleep. Game changer.
Dan Hellman, who's a therapist and trainer, worked with a lot of guys on tour. Had said that a lot of the guys just rave about that. When they're on the road, it just lets them they can crank it down and just get a great night's sleep. I'm gonna have to look at that because it gets pretty warm here. And we're in South Carolina. Andrew Rice lives 5 minutes from me, so it does get cranked up pretty hot. We get the humidity, you're the dry, but once it's 90 plus, that's hot. Let's see. Last one, in your opinion, golfer, greatest of all time.
Tiger.
He's in the lead on my shot. I've asked every guest that, and Tiger's in the lead on that one. It's kind of hard to argue.
He's the GOAT. Exactly.
Hey, that's all I got. I don't. If we miss something, I don't know what it is. I know people are going to take a lot away. I'll have all the links to Ballnamic and obviously Ping and all the stuff that you do in your social media. That highly recommend people follow you. If you got anything to add, more than happy. But I don't know.
No, we covered a lot of stuff. Thanks for having me, Pete. Man, this is super fun. Hope people enjoy it. And anyone has any questions or what have you about fitting, performance, Ping, Ballnamic, the Stack, whatever, hit me up on Twitter/X.
Awesome. And again, everybody, the links will be in the summary, and do not forget to do that. Check all that stuff out. The Stack, the Ballnamic, the Ping fitting. If you're going to be out in Arizona or your local fitter, hit them up and they'll get you straight. They got some great stuff going on.
Exactly. All right. Awesome. You enjoyed it, brother.
Thank you.
Okay.